Princess Lyra sat quietly in the observation chamber of the royal starship, her long silver hair brushing her shoulders. Outside, the vast expanse of space stretched endlessly, dotted with stars like tiny diamonds. The planet below, Terra Nova, glimmered with green forests, blue oceans, and golden deserts. This was humanity's new home, and she was here to see it for herself. Lyra had grown up in a world of engineered perfection. Every alien she knew had flawless skin, perfectly structured bodies, and abilities carefully designed for survival. Strength, speed, intelligence, even appearance, it was all controlled and predictable. But humans were different. She had heard stories about them from her father, the Galactic King. Stories that made her curious and, secretly, a little nervous. The starship descended slowly, and soon the landscape of Terra Nova filled the viewports. Forests stretched farther than any she had seen. Rivers sparkled like liquid glass, and small villages dotted the land. Unlike the controlled cities of her home, these human settlements seemed alive, chaotic, and unpredictable. When the ship finally landed, Lyra stepped out into the bright sunlight. The air smelled fresh, with hints of flowers and wet earth. She took a deep breath, and immediately noticed how differently humans moved. They didn't glide or float like her people, nor did they seem to calculate each step with precision. Instead, they walked with a natural rhythm, occasionally stumbling, stretching, or laughing at their own mistakes. Her guide, Captain Arlen, a human with tanned skin and strong arms, led her through the village. "This way, Princess," he said, smiling politely. "We'll show you how humans live and work here." Lyra's eyes followed everything carefully. Children ran barefoot across uneven stones, chasing each other with loud laughter. Farmers tended their crops with simple tools, their hands covered in dirt but moving with confidence. Lyra had seen machines do this work back home. But here, humans relied on their bodies, strong, imperfect, and yet so capable. They reached a small clearing where a group of humans gathered around a construction project. Lyra's eyes widened. A bridge was being built over a narrow river, and the workers were lifting heavy beams without any special devices. Their muscles flexed and strained, but they didn't give up. One worker slipped and almost fell, but another grabbed him just in time. Lyra's face flushed. She had never imagined bodies like these could do such things. "Humans are amazing," she whispered to herself. Captain Arlen chuckled softly. "They are," he said. "They are not perfect, but they adapt. They find ways to survive and thrive, no matter what." As they walked further, Lyra noticed more small details. Humans had skin that could burn under the sun, hair that tangled easily, and eyes that could water in the wind. Yet, they were alive, vibrant, and unafraid. One woman carried a basket of water across a rocky path, balancing it carefully without spilling a drop. Lyra felt a strange admiration for her. They entered a human home, simple but full of life. The walls were made of wood and stone, decorated with colorful fabrics. Children laughed as they played with small mechanical toys. Humans cooked meals over open flames, using hands, knives, and fire with careful skill. Lyra realized that every movement, every action, relied on their bodies and their minds working together. No machine could replace this. Then came the moment that made her blush most. A young man demonstrated how to lift a large crate using only his back and arms. He struggled, muscles flexing, sweat on his forehead. But finally, he succeeded. Lyra couldn't help but notice the way his body moved, the joints, the curves, the small imperfections that made him human. She quickly looked away, her cheeks warm. Captain Arlen noticed her reaction and smiled. They surprise everyone at first. Humans are different from what most aliens expect. Lyra nodded, still looking around nervously. She had read about human biology in the Royal Archives, but seeing it in action was another thing entirely. Their bones were light yet strong, their muscles flexible, their hearts beating tirelessly. Unlike the engineered aliens, Humans healed from minor injuries, endured pain, and kept moving forward. Later, she followed a group of humans into the forest. They climbed trees, crossed streams, and even walked barefoot over rocks and thorns. Each step left a mark on the earth, each movement a reminder of their connection to the natural world. Lyra was amazed. Her people rarely touched the ground, their lives spent in controlled environments. Humans, however, thrived in unpredictability. At one point, a small child tripped over a root and fell. Lyra gasped, but the child quickly got up, laughing, brushing dirt off the knees. The resilience, the ability to recover, fascinated her. Humans did not fear failure, they learned from it, and they grew stronger. As the day ended, Lyra stood on a hill overlooking the village. The sunset painted the sky with orange, pink, and purple. Humans worked, played, laughed, and rested, all in harmony with the land. Lyra realized that what she had initially thought of as weakness was actually incredible strength. These beings, with all their imperfections, survived, thrived, and built a life from nothing. For the first time, Lyra felt a deep respect for humanity. She blushed, not from embarrassment, but from awe. Her curiosity had turned into admiration. She understood that humans were not made to be perfect. They were made to endure, to create, and to live fully in a world that challenged them every day. As the stars began to twinkle above, Lyra knew that this visit to Terra Nova would change her perspective forever. She had come to observe humans, but in reality, they were teaching her something far greater. That true strength lies not in perfection, but in resilience, adaptability, and heart. And with that thought, she smiled, ready to learn more about these remarkable beings. The next morning, Princess Lyra woke early. The sun had barely risen over Terra Nova, painting the sky in soft pink and gold. She stepped outside the small human dwelling where she was staying, stretching her arms as she looked around. Birds flew overhead, singing melodies that reminded her of nothing she had ever heard back home. Every sound, every smell, every movement of the wind felt alive. Captain Arlen greeted her with a smile. "Good morning, Princess. Today, you will see how humans adapt to their environment. It may surprise you." Lyra nodded, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. She had already seen human strength and resilience, but she wanted to understand more. She wanted to see the human spark, the instinct, the creativity, the very essence that allowed them to survive where machines and perfection might fail. They began their journey in the forest. Unlike her own world, where paths were paved and dangers were minimized, Terra Nova was wild. Trees grew in irregular patterns, rivers carved unpredictable paths, and the terrain shifted from rocky hills to soft meadows without warning. Yet, humans moved through it with astonishing ease. A group of humans was harvesting fruits from tall trees. Lyra watched, fascinated, as they worked together. One person climbed, others steadied the ladder, and still others caught falling fruit in baskets. Their movements were not coordinated by machines or pre-programmed signals. They communicated through gestures, shouts, and instinct. Every step relied on balance, judgment, and quick thinking. Lyra's eyes widened as she noticed the climber. His muscles flexed with each reach, yet he paused to check the rope's knot before moving again. He almost slipped, but regained his balance with a small jump. Lyra felt her cheeks warm. She had never seen bodies work so dynamically, so unpredictably, and yet so efficiently. Captain Arlen noticed her expression. "It is different from what you are used to, isn't it? Humans do not have engineered bodies, but they adapt to challenges naturally. Their minds and bodies work together in ways even technology cannot replicate." They moved to a river crossing next. The water was cold and fast-moving. Several humans were already there, figuring out how to get their supplies across. Some built small rafts from logs, tying them with vines. Others tested the water carefully, finding stones to step on. Lyra watched in fascination. A misstep could mean falling into the cold water. Yet the humans seemed confident. careful, and quick to adjust. One young woman slipped on a wet stone and fell into the river. Gasps rose from those nearby. But within moments, the woman surfaced, laughed, and grabbed the nearest rope to pull herself out. Lyra blinked. She had read about human endurance and recovery, but seeing it firsthand was different. These beings were vulnerable, yes, but their instinct and determination gave them a strength that felt almost magical. As they continued, they reached a field with crops swaying in the breeze. Humans were planting new seeds, repairing broken tools, and carrying water from a distant stream. Lyra noticed that even simple tasks required creativity. Some used baskets to carry extra water. Others fashioned small pulleys to lift heavy loads. Their solutions were improvised, clever, and resourceful, proof that the human mind was as strong as their body. Lyra tried to help, picking up a basket of water. It was heavier than she expected, and she stumbled slightly. A nearby child giggled and steadied her. "It's okay, princess," he said. "You just have to feel the weight, then move with it." Lyra smiled, her face flushing with warmth. Even a small child could teach her something about adapting to the world. By midday, they had reached a small cliff overlooking a valley. A human scout pointed out a herd of wild animals grazing below. "We need to plan carefully if we want to pass through," he said. Lyra watched as the humans discussed quietly among themselves, creating a plan without needing orders or devices. They decided who would distract the animals, who would carry the supplies, and who would keep watch. Lyra was amazed. In her world, every plan relied on machines, calculations, and perfect execution. Here, humans relied on observation, instinct, and teamwork, and yet, their plan was smart, flexible, and effective. She realized that imperfection allowed them to think in ways her people never could. The descent was challenging. Loose rocks, hidden roots, and narrow ledges made each step dangerous. But humans moved with surprising grace. One person slipped, another grabbed them, another found a hidden foothold to help the group advance. Lyra tried to follow, feeling the strain in her legs and arms, but she was careful. Humans had trained their bodies for survival in ways that she had never experienced. Finally, they reached the valley floor safely. Lyra looked back at the cliff they had descended and felt a rush of admiration. Humans were not made for perfection, yet they had achieved what her people would have considered impossible without advanced machinery. Captain Arlen smiled. "You see, princess? Humans rely on adaptation. They survive because they can change, adjust, and create solutions in the moment. Their bodies are flexible, their minds inventive, and their hearts brave." Lyra nodded slowly, her face warm. She thought of the people she had seen that morning, the climbers, the river crosser, the farmers, the children. Every human had faced challenges, often greater than they could have predicted, and yet they persisted. They were fragile, yes, but in their fragility lay a remarkable strength. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows over the valley, Lyra found herself sitting beside a small stream, watching humans work together to build a simple bridge across it. Logs, ropes, and stones were combined in clever ways. Lyra realized that humans were never idle. They used every opportunity to solve problems, to create, to survive. For the first time, she understood that perfection was not the only path to strength. Humans showed her that flexibility, creativity, and courage were just as powerful, if not more so. She blushed quietly, thinking about how different these beings were from everything she had known. As the day ended, the humans gathered around a small fire. They cooked their meals simply but skillfully, sharing food and stories. Lyra joined them, feeling a warmth she had never felt among the engineered perfection of her people. She realized that humans not only survived, they lived fully, embracing joy, struggle, and every moment in between. That night, lying under a blanket of stars, Lyra reflected on the day. She had come to Terra Nova to observe humans, but instead, they had taught her about resilience, adaptation, and courage. Their bodies, though imperfect, carried them through every challenge. Their minds found solutions where machines might fail, and their hearts made them willing to try, to endure, and to grow. Princess Lyra smiled as she drifted to sleep. Terra Nova was more than a new colony, it was a living lesson in the incredible potential of humanity. And she knew, deep in her heart, that she had only just begun to understand the remarkable beings called humans. The morning sun shone brightly over Terra Nova, warming the small village where Princess Lyra was staying. Birds chirped from the trees, and the distant roar of waterfalls added a lively rhythm to the day. Lyra rose early, eager to continue her exploration. She had seen humans adapt to the wild, survive harsh terrain, and work together in harmony, but today promised something new. Captain Arlen greeted her with a grin. "Today, Princess, you will see the humans spark their curiosity, their creativity, and the way they solve problems. You may find it surprising." Lyra nodded, intrigued. She had already witnessed their resilience, but the spark she was curious to see what made it shine so brightly. They walked through the village toward a workshop. Smoke drifted from the chimney, and the smell of warm metal and oil reached her. Inside, humans moved with focused energy. Tools clanged, machines whirred, and sketches covered the walls. Lyra felt a flutter of excitement. This was human ingenuity in action. A young man noticed them and stepped forward. "Welcome, Princess Lyra. I am Joran. Today, I want to show you something we've been working on." Lyra followed him to a large table where pieces of metal, wires, and small gears were arranged carefully. Joran explained that they were trying to build a water purifier for the colony. The planet's streams were not always safe to drink from, and clean water was crucial. Lyra watched closely as Joran and his team tested different designs. Each attempt failed in some way, but they didn't grow frustrated. Instead, they laughed, adjusted, and tried again. A pipe leaked, a filter broke, and yet they worked together. Improvising and solving the problem step by step, her eyes widened. "They keep going, even when things fail?" she asked Captain Arlen. Arlen nodded. "That is the human spark, Princess. They do not give up. Even when they fail, they learn. Each mistake becomes a lesson. Each failure, a new idea. Their minds, like their bodies, adapt." Lyra blushed slightly, realizing she had underestimated them. She had assumed that failure would discourage humans, that their bodies or minds would limit them. Yet here they were, turning obstacles into opportunities with patience and ingenuity. Joran finally smiled. "We think we've got it." He lifted a small device and poured water into the top. Moments later, clear, clean water flowed from the other side. Lyra gasped, amazed at the simplicity and effectiveness of the design. "They did this without machines from home?" she whispered. Arlen nodded. "Everything here is built with what humans have: materials. Their hands, their minds. They do not rely on perfection, only on effort and creativity." Later, Lyra followed a group of humans to the edge of the forest, where they were setting up a small telescope. A young girl named Mira adjusted the lens and pointed toward a distant star cluster. "We want to understand the sky," she said simply. "We want to know what's out there." Lyra observed as Mira made small adjustments, wrote notes, and measured the stars carefully. Lyra was struck by how humans combined curiosity with observation. They explored not because they had to, but because they wanted to understand. Even in the face of danger or difficulty, their desire to learn pushed them forward. As they walked back to the village, Lyra noticed a small group building a wind-powered generator. The adults worked with precision, while children handed tools and offered ideas. One child suggested adding a small lever to improve efficiency. The adults listened carefully and incorporated the idea. Lyra smiled. Humans, young and old, contributed, adapted, and learned from one another. That afternoon, a sudden storm rolled in. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the wind picked up. Trees bent under the force of the gale, and rain poured down in heavy sheets. Lyra felt a shiver, remembering the forest climb from the day before. She watched as humans sprang into action, securing buildings, moving supplies, and helping one another. One man slipped on wet ground and nearly fell into a river. A friend grabbed him in time, steadying him. Lyra blushed again, not from embarrassment this time, but from admiration. She had never seen beings so willing to face danger, to help one another, and to keep going despite fear. When the storm passed, the humans gathered to repair minor damage. Lyra joined them, carrying small tools and helping where she could. She realized that even small actions mattered. Humans relied on teamwork, observation, and creativity, and every contribution was valuable. As evening fell, the village gathered around a fire. Stories were shared, tales of adventure, clever solutions to problems, and moments of bravery. Lyra listened, captivated. Humans laughed at themselves, learned from mistakes, and celebrated achievements, no matter how small. She realized that this spark, their drive, their curiosity, their resilience was what made humans remarkable. Captain Arlen leaned toward her. "Do you see it, Princess? Humans survive, not because they are perfect, but because they never stop trying. Their bodies are flexible, their minds inventive, and their hearts brave. That is the spark you feel." Lyra nodded slowly. She thought of Joran's water purifier, Mira's telescope, and the way the village handled the storm. Humans did not have engineered strength or flawless bodies, yet they faced challenges with courage, creativity, and determination. She blushed once more, realizing how much she admired them. That night, Lyra sat alone under the stars, reflecting on the day. She thought about how humans turned every problem into an opportunity, how they faced danger with courage, and how their minds and hearts worked together to overcome obstacles. She realized that the human spark was more than just intelligence, it was resilience, creativity, and the will to thrive in any situation. Princess Lyra smiled quietly to herself. She had come to Terra Nova to observe humans, but they had already taught her something far greater. Their strength did not lie in perfection, but in adaptability, curiosity, and courage. They were fragile in some ways, yes, but in other ways, they were stronger than anything she had ever known. As she drifted to sleep under the glittering sky, Lyra felt a new excitement for what was to come. Tomorrow promised more lessons, more adventures, and more glimpses of the remarkable beings called humans. She understood, at last, that the spark within them could light up even the darkest corners of the universe. And with that thought, she closed her eyes, eager for the next day, and the next lesson from the extraordinary humans of Terra Nova. The morning air was crisp and bright when Princess Lyra awoke. Today, she was going to witness the humans face challenges in ways she had never imagined. The villagers were preparing for a journey to the nearby canyon, where dangerous terrain and unpredictable weather tested their endurance. Lyra felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had seen humans adapt and innovate, but now she would see how they confronted real danger. Captain Arlen met her outside. "Princess, the canyon is treacherous, but humans see it as a challenge, not a threat. Today, you will understand the depth of their courage." Lyra nodded, her heart beating faster. She had read about human bravery, but reading was different from seeing it firsthand. As they approached the canyon, Lyra noticed the rocky cliffs and narrow ledges stretching hundreds of meters above the valley floor. Winds howled through the rocks, and loose stones threatened every step. Despite the danger, humans moved confidently. They checked ropes, reinforced paths with wooden stakes, and signaled to one another with practiced gestures. One young man, Kale, led the group, his face calm but focused. "Stay close," he called. "We'll take it slow and help each other." Lyra watched as they climbed first one cliff, then another. Every step required attention, balance, and strength. A small rock shifted beneath Kale's foot, but he steadied himself and continued. She felt her own pulse quicken, amazed at how humans manage such peril with courage and calm. At one point, a sudden gust of wind swept across a narrow ledge. A human woman lost her footing and stumbled dangerously close to the edge. Lyra gasped, but before she could react, Another human grabbed her arm and pulled her to safety. The woman laughed nervously. "I'm fine," she said. "Thanks for watching." Lyra felt her cheeks warm. She had never seen such courage paired with trust in one another. Humans were fragile, yes, but their willingness to face danger for each other was remarkable. They reached a section of the canyon with a fast-moving stream. Crossing it required careful planning. Logs and stones were positioned to form a path, but the water rushed around them, threatening to sweep anyone away. Lyra hesitated at the edge, unsure if she could follow. Kale smiled and offered his hand. "Trust yourself. You can do it." Taking a deep breath, Lyra stepped forward. She felt the stones shift under her weight, the cold water brushing her ankles. She stumbled once, but Kale steadied her. Step by step, she crossed the stream, feeling her heart race. The humans cheered quietly when she reached the other side. Lyra realized then that courage was not about fearlessness, it was about persistence, trust, and determination. As they continued deeper into the canyon, they encountered wild animals grazing near the path. Lyra froze, unsure what to do. But the humans remained calm, using clever distractions and careful movements to guide the animals away without harm. She noticed how quickly they adapted to the situation, improvising solutions in the moment. Later, they reached a narrow crevice, where a small child had fallen and hurt his leg. Lyra gasped. But Kale and another adult quickly worked together to lift him to safety. They treated the injury with skill and care, using simple tools and natural remedies. The child smiled through the pain, grateful for their help. Lyra's admiration grew. Humans faced danger not only for themselves but for each other, protecting and supporting one another at every turn. The canyon climb continued for hours. The sun rose higher, making the rocks hot underfoot. Humans sweated, wiped their brows, and yet never stopped. Lyra followed as best she could, feeling the strain in her arms and legs. She had thought she was strong, but even she felt humbled by the humans' endurance. Finally, they reached a plateau, overlooking the entire canyon. The view took Lyra's breath away. She saw winding rivers, jagged cliffs, and forests stretching into the distance. But more than the scenery, it was the humans' accomplishment that impressed her. They had conquered danger with courage, creativity, and teamwork. They had relied on their bodies, minds, and hearts, and succeeded. Captain Arlen spoke quietly. "Do you see, Princess? Humans are not perfect, but their strength is in their determination, their willingness to act, and their courage. They face challenges that would defeat many other species, and they continue on, helping each other along the way." Lyra nodded, her face glowing with admiration. She thought of the woman who stumbled, the child who was rescued, and the team that crossed the stream. Each had faced fear, injury, or uncertainty, and had responded with bravery and resourcefulness. As the day turned to evening, the humans set up a small camp on the plateau. They built a fire, cooked a simple meal, and shared stories of the day's journey. Lyra joined them, listening and learning. Each story revealed another layer of human courage, how they faced wild storms, tricky terrain, and unexpected dangers without giving up. Lyra felt a warmth in her heart as she observed them. Humans were not perfect machines or engineered beings. They were vulnerable, fragile, and sometimes clumsy. Yet they were capable of extraordinary strength, ingenuity, and bravery. Their courage was not loud or showy, it was quiet, persistent, and powerful. That night, under the stars, Lyra reflected on what she had seen. Humans were not made to be flawless, but they were made to endure. Their bodies might bruise, their muscles might tire, and their minds might struggle, but they kept moving forward. And in their hearts, they carried something more powerful than any engineered perfection: courage, compassion, and a desire to survive and thrive together. Princess Lyra smiled quietly. She had come to Terra Nova to observe humans, but they had already taught her more than she could have imagined. Their strength lay not in perfection, but in resilience, adaptability, and courage. She blushed once more, realizing how deeply she admired these remarkable beings. As she drifted to sleep under the glittering sky, Lyra knew that tomorrow would bring more lessons, more discoveries, and perhaps more surprises. Humans were unpredictable, imperfect, and yet extraordinary in every way. She understood now that their courage was a light in the galaxy, a spark that could inspire all who witnessed it. And with that thought, she closed her eyes, ready for whatever Terra Nova and its extraordinary humans would teach her next. The morning on Terra Nova dawned clear and bright. Princess Lyra woke to the sound of birds singing and children laughing in the village below. After several days observing the humans, she felt a mixture of excitement and reflection. She had watched them adapt, innovate, and show remarkable courage. Today, she would see what truly made them extraordinary. Captain Arlen greeted her at the edge of the village. "Princess, today we will visit the central plateau. From there, you will see how humans create, celebrate, and thrive together. You may find it enlightening." Lyra nodded. Her curiosity was stronger than ever. She had already seen their strength, adaptability, and courage. But she wanted to understand the heart of humanity. They began their journey through the village, where humans were already at work. Farmers tended crops, children helped carry small loads, and artisans shaped clay into pots and tools. The humans moved with purpose, their actions small, yet meaningful. Lyra watched closely. Their world was built not on perfection, but on cooperation, effort, and care. As they reached the plateau, Lyra saw something she had never expected. The humans had constructed a small amphitheater overlooking the valley. People of all ages were gathered there, preparing for a festival. Music instruments were tuned, decorations hung, and small fires were lit for warmth. Lyra's eyes widened. Even in a challenging environment, humans found joy and ways to celebrate life. A young musician played a flute, filling the air with a cheerful melody. Children danced, their laughter echoing through the valley. Adults sang, creating a harmony that blended with the wind. Lyra felt her chest tighten. The humans' resilience was not only in survival, it was in their ability to live fully, to create beauty even in imperfection. Captain Arlen spoke softly beside her. "See, Princess, humans do more than endure. They celebrate, create, and inspire. Their strength is not only in their bodies or minds, but in their spirit." Lyra nodded slowly. She had seen courage, creativity, and endurance. But this joy and connection was something deeper. Humans were fragile, yes, but their hearts and minds were resilient in ways her people could hardly imagine. Later, a human engineer, Joran, approached with a small model. "Princess Lyra, we've been building a bridge across the northern river. It's not perfect, but it works. Would you like to see?" Lyra followed him to the bridge. It was simple, constructed from logs, ropes, and stones, yet it held strong. Humans crossed carefully, supporting one another. Lyra realized that the bridge was more than just a physical structure. It symbolized their ingenuity, cooperation, and trust. She stepped onto the bridge herself, feeling it shift slightly under her weight. A child held her hand and guided her across. Lyra smiled, her face warming. Humans trusted each other and worked together. Building more than structures, they built connections, confidence, and community. As the sun climbed higher, the festival began. Humans shared stories of past challenges, clever solutions, and acts of bravery. Lyra listened intently. Each tale was filled with laughter, mistakes, lessons learned, and victories, small and large. She realized that humans did not hide their imperfections, they embraced them, learned from them, and celebrated progress. By afternoon, Lyra had joined the humans in their activities. She helped carry water, move supplies, and even join a small dance. She felt alive in a way she had never experienced among her own kind. Humans were not flawless, but their energy, spirit, and determination were contagious. Every moment spent with them revealed something new about their strength. Captain Arlen observed her quietly. "Princess, you see now, don't you? Humans are remarkable not because they are perfect, but because they strive, adapt, and create. Their flaws make them resourceful. Their courage makes them inspiring. Their hearts make them extraordinary." Lyra's eyes shone as she looked around the plateau. She thought of the climbers who scaled cliffs, the engineers who built water purifiers, the children who learned from elders, and the villagers who celebrated life together. Humans were imperfect, yet they were capable of greatness in ways her people could never replicate. As evening approached, the festival ended with a shared meal. Humans gathered around fires, passing food, sharing stories, and expressing gratitude. Lyra joined them, savoring the warmth of community. She realized that strength was not only measured by physical ability or intelligence, it was measured by resilience, creativity, courage, and the capacity to care for others. For the first time, Princess Lyra understood why humans fascinated the galaxy. Their bodies were imperfect, their lives unpredictable, yet they thrived in ways engineered perfection could not. They faced challenges, overcame fears, adapted to circumstances, and created joy. Their strength was alive, dynamic, and undeniable. That night, Lyra walked alone to the edge of the plateau. The stars above glittered like countless diamonds, and the village below rested peacefully. She thought about the humans she had observed, their courage, creativity, resilience, and joy. Her cheeks warmed with admiration and awe. "I understand now," she whispered to herself. "Humans are extraordinary, not because they are flawless, but because they live fully, embrace challenges, and create beauty from imperfection." Lyra sat quietly, watching the soft lights of the village. She realized that she had come to Terra Nova as a visitor, but the humans had taught her lessons she would carry forever. Their strength was not in engineered bodies or perfect minds, it was in their hearts, their spirit, and their unwavering determination. As she drifted to sleep under the vast night sky, Lyra smiled. She had seen humans climb cliffs, face storms, solve problems, build communities, and celebrate life. She had learned that their greatest power lay in adaptability, courage, creativity, and compassion. They were fragile, yet mighty, imperfect, yet extraordinary. Princess Lyra knew that her journey on Terra Nova had changed her forever. She would return to her world with stories of humanity's brilliance, spreading admiration for the beings who thrived against all odds. In the vast galaxy, she would carry a simple truth. Humans were a testament to resilience, ingenuity, and heart. And as the stars twinkled above, Lyra whispered softly, "Humans are not perfect, but they are incredible, and I am proud to witness it."